What's going on, wrestling fans? It is Ice Fall, and welcome to Tag Count. On today's edition, I am talking to one of my favorite superstars from ECW, WCW, WWE, Impact Wrestling, everywhere. It's Johnny Swinger. How are you doing today?
Great, great. That's a lot of letters, like an eye chart, huh? All these
I gotta,
letters, initials that I've been to.
I gotta write them all down. You know, it
Right.
it turns into a bit of a bingo. Like, okay, wait, he was here at that
Ooh,
point.
I can win some money on
Here
this
at that
deal, right,
point.
Daddy?
No kidding. That's one of the questions I did want to bring up because my first introduction to you, at least for me as a fan, was ECW in 2000. So there you are, and like, big old, I felt like you were a big old tough guy in a way, a brawler, a brute. But then in today's world, Impact Wrestling, I don't feel that at all from you. I'm getting, the daddies and the laughing and the comedic styling.
Right.
When was there a change in your persona of going, okay, I don't want to be this guy who's just known for being a really good wrestler and jacked. I want to be known as something else.
I think it's because there's so many of those today. There's so many great technical wrestlers that are tough guys and tough women, for that matter. And so I just wanted to do something different. Of course, this was proposed to me by Scott D'Amore, the
Oh,
president of Impact, and basically he had called me about 4 years ago, and we've been friends for 30 years. He's been behind me since I started, all the way back to the WCW days. And his words to me were, "You're the honky tonk man, but you think you're Ricky Morton. Make a gimmick out of that." And man, it took me about 10 seconds, and I knew how this was going to go. So it was a great opportunity, and almost 4 years back with Impact. It's the longest I've ever been anywhere, so it's been
wow.
going great, and I love going there and seeing what they have for me to do.
Yeah, Impact Wrestling, I think, is just doing such great business. Like everyone talks about, oh, what great matches they have, or women's division, or tag teams. No, no, no. Like they're selling out. When you look at the pay-per-views every single month, selling out every single
Right.
time. It's outstanding, and the women are main eventing constantly. Some companies are
Yep.
like, "Look, we're doing this," but Impact has always been doing it since day one when they started on pay-per-views with Gail Kim and Awesome Kong. So, like, how do you feel like Impact Wrestling compares to other places? Because again, this is the longest time you've been in Impact Wrestling, 2019 to now, and your character has seen so many different turns, but always staying kind of steadfast of being this guy who's like, I will cut corners if I need to.
Right, right. Well, you had mentioned ECW earlier, and that it really Impact reminds me a lot of ECW in the sense that uh, everybody helps everybody out. There's no cliques, there's no guys that are, oh, I don't want to see this guy get
Mm,
over or succeed. We all kind of work together to make a great show. That's what ECW was like, and not that the other places aren't like that. I'm not here to bury the WWE or WCW. They were great places. WCW is where I got my start. I'll always be grateful for the opportunities there, but maybe because it's a smaller territory and it really depends on all the wrestlers getting over and meaning something to the people so that
mm,
they'll want to watch us and come out to see us. You know what I mean? So it's everybody works together. People have ideas for me and I use them, man. And we just do our best to have a great show.
yeah, always pulling off the stuff. Every time there's a pay-per-view again, you see like, oh my God, like it's trending and everyone's talking about it. It's great stuff. And
Right.
ECW, we brought it up. Like when you came into ECW in 2000, ECW, I didn't know. I wasn't like reading the Wrestling Observer or going on the internet. I was just enjoying finding ECW on the Spanish channel at 1 in the morning on Friday nights where I live. That's where I got to watch it until it was on cable TV. And that's when you kind of came into this. So how did you come into ECW? Did you know Paul Heyman before in your WCW days?
Nope, never met him. How that came about was 3 years with WCW, and I used to watch ECW. A lot of us did, myself and Disco and Chris Canyon, and we used to watch ECW at midnights, like on the Sunshine
Oh
Network,
yeah.
and just like, man, these guys are insane. Well, we'd never worked there, you know what I mean? And then lo and behold, I ended up there. And the way that happened was I just kind of finished up with WCW. There wasn't much more for me to do there. The NWO was so overpowering, and then underneath that you had Benoit and Guerrero and Malenko and all those guys. It was really hard for a guy like me to get to the next level.
Mm,
So, and I was still pretty young, so I was wanted to go to the WWF, and then through my friendship with Raven, I had gotten a tryout with ECW, and I didn't know how that was going to go because at that time, I didn't think that my style would, I was a WCW wrestler, want to be WWF wrestler, and ECW was just all the way to the left. It was completely, but the first time I went in there and the way the crowd reacted to me, like I was a somebody, they knew who I was, they knew where I was from. And at that time, WCW, they were the bad guys, they were the
Right.
corporate, you know what I mean? So I had an instant reaction there, which was more than I had ever gotten at that point. So it really, it started really fast there for me. And I had a really good year there with Simon Diamond, who's a great friend of mine to this day. And we just had a great run. And me and Dreamer always talk about it. And Rhino, like, man, if ECW would have kept going, I think that, I probably would have moved up even further there if we had more time with that. So it was a great place to be. It was a full-time company. We wrestled every week, national TV and house shows and all that. It was a great training ground for the big time, which is what we were all going for back then.
Yeah, ECW is a different brand, especially because suddenly I think it was like the People's Federation, because we had WCW owned by Ted Turner. You had the WWF, who's been in power for years because of the Hulkamania run and all that good stuff. But
right.
ECW, it felt like it was ours. Like, oh, this is ours. We yay, and everything was going great. Magazines, action figures, but then suddenly the bottom falls out and ECW closes. And I've talked to Rob Van Dam and other superstars before, and there's this book. I won't mention it because in the back it tells you what Paul Heyman or ECW owed to these wrestlers. Were you owed money at the end of ECW?
Man, I've been asked that question a lot. And to be honest, no, I am not owed any money in compensation because I was paid so little. But no, that is the truth. I was not on a high paying deal there. And that's not what I was there for. I was there to increase my visibility, increase my equity, so to speak, to be attractive, to go back to WCW or to the WWF in a higher position. But while I was there, I got to learn a lot as far as you sink or swim with those people in Philadelphia, man. If you don't have what it takes, they won't make a peep and you'll be done. You know what I mean? So you really had to earn your stripes with that. And it was quite the eye opener and experience for me. And, I'm grateful that I got that chance because you can't get it anymore. You just can't go there. Guys can't go there to get that kind of experience. And it was invaluable. It really was.
Yeah, I remember you guys with you, Simon Diamond, and W. Anderson.
Right.
That guy, I love that group in ECW. But you mentioned where you were before. In '95 in the fall, you did compete on Sunday Night Raws. But you fought Mario Jannetty, who I absolutely adore, Shane Douglas, but some guy. Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Oh gosh,
I think he went on as Triple H.
I wasn't even 2 years out of high school. That was literally, I had been wrestling maybe a year or so out in West Canada for a guy named Tony Condello. He started Roddy Piper and a whole host of people, and that's where I got the first call from Scott D'Amore. I never met him before, and he saw me on a Winnipeg TV show, and he said, "Man, you look like you could be on TV. Would you be interested?" I'm like, "Sure." Next thing you know, I'm at Monday Night Raw. Wrestling Marty Jannetty and, like you said, Triple H and them. And then I was in WCW, WCW Saturday Night. This was before Nitro even started.
Right.
And man, that's it. I'm wrestling on TV, not even old enough to buy beer yet.
That's awesome though, because what an experience. That stuff doesn't happen anymore. These stories that you're telling about how getting your foot in an ECW or before you can even buy a beer on TV, like, that's how there was, I don't know, the red tape or the cut corners of the wrestling industry. Now we are corporate. We need to make sure we can't bring in little kids to wrestle, an 18-year-old boy wrestling.
Yeah. I didn't have a performance center or anything like that, man. I was out there working for a little bit of money. You know what I mean? And when I got that first call from Scott D'Amore, I was like, man, when do I start? You know what I mean? You tell me where to be and I'll be there early. You know what I mean? And walked in the locker room in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's where I met Rhino, I think, one of the first times I met him. And we're both about the same age, so we were both around 20 years old, man. We walked in that dressing room. Monday Night Raw, sat down in a chair, kept our mouth shut, and waited for Mr. Tony Gurria to come up and tell us, what we were going to be doing that night. And man, it was at that point, that was a dream come true. And I remember thinking, man, if I don't do anything else after that,
I
man,
know.
I'm wrestling in the WWF on their main television show. I mean, not everybody can say that. So
No.
they're all great experiences.
My God, yeah, it's so funny to think that because you go back and like so you walk in this locker room and I know there's always etiquette in professional wrestling where you go in, you shake everybody's hand, doesn't matter who they are or how big or small. Is there someone in there that like are you shaking hands? Are you doing that? Or you're sitting down like you just said and we're like, I'm not gonna do anything. I don't want to piss anybody off, make somebody happy. I'm gonna sit here and not move.
Anybody that's within, a distance, yeah, I mean, you wouldn't run across the room and interrupt Dick Slater playing cards with, Dick Murdoch or something. You pick your spots, you know what I mean, and you just that's the way we were taught, especially when you're first starting out. You really don't know too much. If you're in a big territory like that, you just kind of listen for your name and see when the board comes out and who you're wrestling. There's always an agent attached to it, and they'll tell you what to do. And man, just be thankful to be there. I'm still that way. I still, even for my character at Impact, I'm not running around the locker room doing promos and all. I mean, I make sure I'm in an area where I can be found, so that when they need you and they got to go looking for you, that's already a negative right there. Like, okay, where is this guy? You know what I mean? He's got a spot here. He needs to be available. Just make yourself available. Make sure you're in a spot where they can find you. And not just for wrestling, but just at any job, anything you go in life, you walk in the first day, you introduce yourself to everybody and be cordial with, they're all there. They already have a job and you're trying to get one. So, it's just a polite thing to do. And if you're an accountant, you walk into the office the first day and introduce yourself to everybody. And because if you don't, then you come off as like, oh man, what does this guy think he's going to come in and take over and all that? And some guys don't mean to be that way, but they're a little bit too quiet or shy, and it can be, confused with arrogance or something. So I always, to this day, if I come close to a human being, I say hello, stick your hand out, hey, thanks for putting up the ring if that's what you did, because we
Yeah.
can't have a show without it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Of course. That's the good point. You're making a lot of good points there. Because like, do you talk too much? Do you talk too little? It's like seems like there's a
Right.
tightrope walk in professional wrestling of I like
Sure.
that guy, but not I don't hate him. I hate that guy, but not too much. Like there's always this weird demeanor of
Right.
backstage. You mentioned WCW though, July 6th, 1998. You're actually part of one of the most highest rated episodes of WCW Nitro. You fought Chavo Guerrero. On that night though, Goldberg defeated Hulk Hogan for the WCW Championship in the Georgia Dome, and people went crazy for that. But you're in the WCW locker room for 3 years. Do
Right.
you have any conversations with Hulk Hogan, the biggest wrestling character of all time, and what were they about? Like, what's he like backstage? Because many different people have many different stories about him.
He wasn't that accessible in the back. I never changed in the same room as him. I think he always had his own dressing room. But when I would see him in the hallway, I'd of course go up to him or I would initiate, hey Hulk, how you doing? Shake his hand. And he's always very cordial. And I saw him, he was in WWE in 2005 when I was there.
Yep.
Same thing, just one of the boys. I never seen him act out or give anyone a hard time or raise his voice or anything like that. And whenever I said hello to him or anything, he said hello back. I had some small conversations with him. Actually, there was a company called XWF that came out after WCW closed, and he was involved with that, and actually talked to him a little bit there about his son and all that. And he was always a cool guy. I never had any kind of, and of course I was in awe of him because this was the guy when I was a kid, you know what I mean? That he was wrestling when I was wanting to get into it. You know what I mean? So it's like being on stage with Elvis or something. Like, geez, if he even makes eye contact with you and says hello. And once again, how many people can say that? Yeah, I'm rubbing elbows with Hulk Hogan. I'm trying to be a wrestler and I'm in the dressing room with Hulk Hogan. Well, I think that's pretty good.
Right. That sounds like success to me, especially,
Yeah.
In that time frame of 1998 is professional wrestling is on
Oh
fire.
man.
On
Yeah. What a
fire.
great time great timing for me to be under a contract with Ted Turner in the biggest wrestling company with all the biggest stars that, like I said, were the generation before when I was watching as a kid. Now I'm on the show with all these guys. It's just unbelievable. And that's when Goldberg got really big. And man, the reaction in that Georgia Dome, I was there, like you said, and just I went out into the arena just because I knew what that was going to be like. And I never seen anything like that since then, to be honest with you. It was just I always say that's the biggest show I was ever on and probably ever will be. I mean, I don't know how you beat 40,000 people. It's the highest rated TV show WCW ever did. You know, I mean, it's just what an unbelievable moment. You know, I mean, I hate that they tore the Georgia Dome down because for a lot of years because I live in Atlanta, I'd be driving out of the city and I could look in my rear view mirror 30 miles away and see that dome and think, man, I wrestled in that thing with the biggest wrestlers that ever lived. And you know, they tore it down and built this Mercedes Benz thing or whatever. But man, that was quite the experience. You know, I can't believe it's been 25 years, but yeah, that was a heck of a deal there. And I hope I can get on a big one like that again. But if I don't, man, I did. You know what I mean? That's why I always, you know, consider it like that. Like, wow, I got a chance to do that. And I don't want to say, man, I hope I get to do it 10 more times. Once is unbelievable for a crowd like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right about that night, though. There was something in the air, and the fact that you had Goldberg, who was like, again, red hot, taking on Hulk Hogan, the #1 bad guy, turning evil 2 years ago, forming the NWO, and that storyline. You know, people bring up the Bloodline storyline a lot of like, oh, this is a masterpiece. Nothing will ever top this. Well, you didn't go. Did you watch WCW? Did you watch Hulk Hogan, the biggest babyface of all time, turn on the fans and join up with the Outsiders and the NWO? And you're there. You are there. Like, what's your experience like seeing the NWO and there's Sting and there's Lex Luger and the Macho Man and DDP's rising up? Like, there's a lot going on while you're there.
Oh yeah, I was at a lot of nitros where the NWO go in the ring. The people are throwing stuff at them. It was just like they wanted to kill them. They hated them so much for just being the anti-heroes. And this was before they got so bad that they got good, right? Then the people really started cheering them as the good guys. But it's like, man, they hated Hogan and those guys for the longest time. Then they realized there's no way Sting and Lex are going to overcome them. So that's when they started to really explode as good guys. Yeah. But yeah, like you said, United Center, Chicago sold out, Miami Arena, all these huge venues just sold out for wrestling. And for me to even be the first match on there, I mean, just what an unbelievable opportunity. And I'll never forget it. And, you know, gosh, we had 7-8 million people watching those shows. Even the WCW Saturday night show on TBS was 2 million people were watching it. None of the shows were, you know, slouches as far as ratings. They had a lot of eyes on it. And once again, I wish it was still there today. There is AEW and it's very similar, but just that lineage of the NWA into WCW is really like WWF to WWE. I wish it was still an entity because they would get a lot of people opportunities to make a big career.
I'm very happy that social media wasn't around during the Attitude Era versus WCW NWO era, because people can't handle on Twitter these days of the argument of how dare you? Because as a child, I'll be honest, as a child, I was upset with WCW. Say, how dare you hurt my WWF? How dare you? And Nash and Hall, who are they? I like Diesel and Razor Ramon. Like, that was how I was as a child. And in today's world, you go on, you know, Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and these are grown men. These aren't these are not children arguing over how dare you hurt my WWE, or how dare you have your sports entertainment versus your AEW. Oh, I don't watch that. I watch Impact. I watch NWA. I watch New Japan. Like, there is just a crazy amount of wrestling going on right now. But I guess, I guess anger sometimes is passion, right? So
Oh, for sure.
So it's there. It's there, but you know,
there's something for everybody out there, man. There really is. I mean, and if you've watched some of our shows recently, I'm sitting in the back going, wow, we're getting pretty violent here with some of this stuff. And it's surprising me. And then AEW, man, they're doing some stuff on there I've never seen before. I'm like, man, how are these guys surviving? I mean, how are they getting up and walking the next day? I mean, my hat's off to them. I mean, to me, anybody that gets in the ring, you kind of taking your life in your own hands. But when you start climbing up ladders and tables are stacked up and all, there's no way to gauge how that's going to go until you end up at the bottom of the pile. You know what I mean? And it was never my cup of tea or my forte, but man, there's a market for that, and we're providing it, and that's what it's all about, man.
Well, it seems like Bully Ray, you know, and Scott D'Amore are having that you're talking about violence and Impact Wrestling,
Yeah,
which I love because we've always had good matches, X Division matches, good storytelling. I love Sue Young. Like there's all these other people, but yet this past couple months, like Steve
yeah,
Macklin bleeding out, like pretty much
right.
just, and then
I
you
thought he was
have
gonna die
Scott
out there. Yeah,
D'Amore and you have Flaming Tables, you have Bully Ray. Like, if people weren't watching Impact before, these images, these GIFs, these videos that pop up everywhere suddenly are like, wait, what the hell is
right.
this? This is
Yeah,
amazing because you're not getting that really in AEW or WWE. You're getting versions of it in AEW, but what we're
sure.
seeing in Impact, I think, like honestly, leveling up Impact Wrestling over the past year, and it's very obvious by ticket sales in live events. Like, can't you agree?
Well, I've been wrestling for 30 years, and I grew up in the sport. And I go up to PCO, Pierre Carolette, and go, "How do you do that and live?" I mean, the guy's getting slammed off the top rope on cinder blocks, and the guy's stapling his face, pulling the staples out with a pliers, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you're not a human being. How can you withstand that?" And I've been in it my whole life, so I can imagine what the fans are thinking. And it's something because of that, it's something to pay to see. It really is.
Yeah.
It's something to see. And like you said, Macklin and Scott D'Amore, like I said, we've been friends for 30 years. He's doing stuff out there, and it's like I'm like, oh my gosh, are you? Do I need to go out there and make the save or what? I mean, at what point does this cross over? And like you said, the thing with him and Bully is so realistic that I think it is real in part because I
Sure.
don't think you could act that much hatred to people for each other and nastiness. You know what I mean? That nobody's that good. So there might be a little bit of, at least I'm wondering. And once again, if I'm wondering, you know what I mean?
We're all wondering.
It's, yeah, it's, you want to see what happens next. I know I do.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to see what happens next. It's certainly crazy stuff going on there right now. But Impact Wrestling, I felt like opened up TNA when it was NWA TNA. When it opened up, it was because WCW and ECW were purchased and by the WWE. And you didn't come over though. You were in WCW, you're in ECW. Was there ever discussion because many talented people came over who didn't succeed at all? Like look at the people who came over, all great talents. But you didn't come over. Was there an offer? Was there
There
not an
was,
offer?
well, when it started in 2002, there were 100 people looking for spots. And there was way more people looking for a job than they needed.
Mm,
So me and Simon Diamond went in there a couple times in the first year
yeah.
and just wrestled some random matches. But when we went back in 2003 to wrestle America's Most Wanted, we got lucky once again because it was good timing. They were the tag team champions and they weren't in a feud with anyone. And we had a really good match on the pay-per-view. And then it got brought back the next week. And by the third week, we were chasing them for the titles.
Yep.
And 6 weeks after that, we were the champions and getting contracts and all that. So it's really anyone that's watching this, that's trying to break in the business or they've been struggling for a while, just keep going because that's the only way you won't make it is if you quit because you just never know when someone gets hurt, someone leaves the promotion and they need somebody today and you're right there and you go right into the spot. It's just like the movies, man. You got to get a role. And then once you get a role, they remember you for the next role. So you got to get that first role. And that all kind of snowballed for us. And we ended up having a great run there.
Yeah. And then I'm talking about also with the WWE. Was there an offer for you and Simon Diamond to come over? Because there was the ECW, WCW invasion storyline taking on the WWE, and they obviously needed more ECW people, but they're already working there, so it was really awkward
Yeah.
to just cross over,
Once
bringing in
again,
more.
yeah, there were so many people, so many highly established people, you know what I'm saying? And it just I tried. I actually had a tryout on Raw the night that Shane McMahon was on the Panama City
Oh
Nitro.
wow!
I was there getting a try. And that, if you remember, that was 2001. That was before the internet was real big and information didn't get out. So I'm sitting in catering in Cleveland, Ohio, trying to get a job with WWF. And that's how I found out they were buying WCW because he was on the show like that. We all found out that day. It's not like it was a rumor or the rumor was Eric Bischoff had a company that was going to buy it. And I thought I would have an opportunity with that. So that was just like, yeah. So I remember sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, there's 100 guys down there now that are going to be, you know what I mean? And like you said, the invasion, so many people were not brought in for that because it was just too many people. There's just too many bodies. They didn't need that many. So
That
luckily it worked out for me that
yeah,
TNA came about.
yeah.
Otherwise, that might have been the end of my career in wrestling. But in my 20s still, TNA coming about is really kind of what continued my career, and kept me working and being established with the fans so that I could, even after the TNA run, when I went to WWE for a little while, and I wasn't there long, but by then I was already established enough to do independent wrestling and be able to get quite a lot of work doing that.
That's incredible that you were there the night of the Panama City. The contract does say McMahon, but Shane
Yeah,
McMahon, and there you are looking for a job, thinking you're going to get one. And it's funny. And I feel like Road Dogg has a similar story. He doesn't work for the WWE in 2001, and he goes to Nitro to look for a
I heard
job.
this. Yeah,
And then there comes Shane. Here comes Bruce Pritchard, and he's like, "Ah, damn it!"
right. Only he was a much higher level star, so it's more dramatic with him. But yeah, same story, and I'm great friends with him and his whole family.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, I was so tight with his dad, Bullet Bob. I used to wrestle with him in Alabama. I did a tag team match with Bullet Bob when he was 80 years old. So I love that whole family, and Brian's a great guy. I have
Yeah.
heard that story, and I'm like, man, that's the same story I got. We both
Yes.
went to these shows trying to get back in, and it all became one.
It's outstanding that there is like the same exact story on just different areas of the night. Being like,
Right.
"Oh, cool, I'm gonna get a job." Oh shoot, I don't think I'm
Yeah.
gonna get a
Yeah.
job. Um,
All right. Let's hope Dusty runs some spot shows in Georgia or Oklahoma or something, right?
that's
He
amazing.
was busy. Yeah.
That's so funny though. Though, yeah, but you mentioned because in 2005 you did sign a deal with the WWE, and you were on Heat a lot, and you
Yeah.
were Johnny Paris, and you did a lot of work there. But why don't you think it ever was like, hey, you're coming to Raw, hey, you're coming to SmackDown? Was there discussions? And many people I've talked to share, oh, there was this plan, and then that plan just blew up in my face.
Once again, that company was so big at that point, and what goes on in these meetings, you know what I mean. You hear afterward, and I was brought in there on a developmental contract, because that's what was offered to me. I was finishing up with TNA, and my dream was always to go to the WWFE as a full-time talent, not what I did in the beginning with like in 1995, but to actually be a full-time talent and reap the benefits of such. And I was offered a developmental contract in the words of, this is a good way for you to get in. This is the way most people get in unless you're an established top name draw.
Mm-hmm.
So I accepted that. And once again, I did what they told me to do. They told me to go to the developmental training center. It was like an OVW, but it was in Georgia, and it was already where I lived anyway. So I didn't have to relocate or anything like that. So I did that for a few months, and even by then, after a few months, my body started hurting me. I'm like, geez, guys, I've been wrestling 10, 11 years. I've never been really injured. Now I'm starting to have neck. You guys going to use me a little bit? Or, if you're not interested, maybe I can go back to TNA. So
Yeah.
that's kind of, they started to put me on, like you said, Sunday Night Heat. And that was just to, get you on TV, see how you look in the frame kind of thing. And every time I came back from the match, they were happy with it. And the producers would tell me, yeah, they're talking about you in the meetings. They're just not sure, but they're going to bring this guy and that guy. And once again, way more bodies than spots. And I just didn't have a man in those meetings going, let's draw some money with this guy. And that's real all there was to it. And once again, those 16 months as a WWE wrestler is not something that everybody can put on their resume. So I'm grateful for that opportunity to work for Mr. McMahon. His daughter, Stephanie, was always very pleasant to me. Triple H, all of them, I didn't have any problems there as far as going to the TV tapings, because I wasn't one of those people that walk around, hey, when are you going to do this? Why am I not doing that? Yeah, man, they'll let you know. And after a certain amount of time goes by, you kind of know it explains itself. And
Mhm.
I was still 31 years old. I knew my career wasn't over. I figured if I leave, I'll probably be back there someday again. You know what I mean? And you just never know. And it was a handshake thing. And I went back to the independents and immersed myself in the Southern independents for several years and had a lot of success with that before going back to Impact for this current run.
Yeah. You're again doing an outstanding work there. I think it's hilarious everything you got going on
Oh, I
right
love
now.
it. I wish I would have
It's so
did this 20
entertaining.
years ago. Yeah, I wish I could have been the swing man on you know what I mean? Because I had all this inside of me. It's all just years of experience and spending a lot of time on the road with King Kong Bundy and Jim Neidhart and Jake Roberts and Honky Tonk Man and my early years in my career, and I just absorbed all these people's mannerisms and the way they talked and the way they acted, and it just comes out of me. And then we also have great producers at Impact. Tommy Dreamer's on the creative team. We have Robert Evans, Scott Demore is the head of creative. They know the gimmick. They know where I'm coming from. Everybody throws something in the hat, and man, I use it all. I really do. And it's the best time I ever had performing. And I think it's something that I can maintain into my even later years, as far as, like you said, you can only do hurricanranas for so long. And, these unbelievable high spots and moves, eventually it's going to wear your body out. You won't be able to do it. So I like this. I get to play more of a character and a personality, which is really what I always wanted to be. So I just finally got the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, longevity is the key in wrestling, it seems, and changing up what you're doing. And you can't always be. For instance, I love Shawn Michaels. He can't always be the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels with long, beautiful hair.
Right, right. Yeah,
it
we're
all,
all getting
or
older, man.
it all falls out eventually. And so, for some people,
You
those
just
old
get a bandana and cover it up,
Hogan has had it right all the time. He always knew where a
I
bandana.
know.
He
Yeah.
was a smart man. Even in court,
Oh
anytime
yeah.
wear a
Yeah.
bandana, and I'm like, I don't know if they even allow that in here, but they're
Right.
letting you do it, man. They're letting you do it
Yep.
because you're Hulk Hogan. That's so funny
Yeah.
though. But it's great to hear that you traveled across the world with all these talented people. Like, do you have a Jake the Snake? Hey, I'm story, because everyone has a Jake story because he has a snake and he likes to rib.
Yeah, and I've done some trips with him, like drives to independent shows, and you can learn a lot by being in a car with someone like him, as far as the psychology of being a wrestler and why you would do something and not do something else. I don't have any crazy stories about him because I wasn't I
You were,
wasn't out with him in a party sense, you know what I
mm,
mean? And hey, you know what I mean? I've been in cars with these guys and in the dressing rooms, and then I just watch them go out in the ring and do it. You know what I mean? And that's it, really, that's, I think, how you learn how to really do it is by watching the people that are good at it, and that's how I formed this swingman character. I take a little bit from a lot of people that I've had contact with over the years in the ring, outside the ring, and just kind of go over the top with it. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. And if you're in a car with Honky Tonk Man, you're going to be laughing the whole time. You really are. Just like watching one of my interviews. You know what I'm saying? And that's where I get it from. That whole persona of entertaining the people. That's the number one job. And I love this deal I got now, and I'm gonna enjoy it for however long I have it.
when you say daddy, all I think of is Bill Alfonso. When
Yeah,
I hear
right.
daddy.
Yeah, the daddy thing is, I guess, an old school. Hey, listen, daddy,
Right.
you've had Barry Horowitz on, and Barry Horowitz and I used to travel together in WCW in that 98, 99 period that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I was always a fan of his when I was a kid. And then I met him in WCW, became friends with him. We wrestled each other. And he used to tell me in the late 90s that I reminded him of Paul Roma, uh,
Ah,
which I took as a huge compliment because I thought Paul was a great talent. He had one of the best looking physiques you could have. And,
Power and
and he,
Glory.
yeah, and Barry would do these impressions of Paul, and it was always, listen, Daddy, I had this Frizat the other night that led, listen, everyone's daddy. So that's kind of where the daddy is, like that old school,
Oh,
everything's daddied out. Yeah, you got it, daddy. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And so that's kind of where I got it from. That just Boogie Woogie. would spew that. Oh, everything's going great, Daddy. How you doing, Daddy? You know, it's just like an old timer thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just kind of started saying that, and it just stuck with geez, almost every sentence ends with
Daddy.
yeah, yeah.
Well, everyone's obsessed with Rhea Ripley, the mommy. We need to get the daddy shirts going. We need to get a
That's
lot
right.
more daddy merch,
That's right, Daddy.
get the gimmick going. I love it. I love it so much. Again, I've loved you in ECW, WCW, Johnny Paris in the WWE, what you're doing now, Daddy, in Impact Wrestling. You've done so much, and I just want to say it's been an honor and a privilege to talk to you today about your career, because you've done so much, like being on one of the top Nitro episodes in the Georgia Dome, and they tore it down to crush your soul every time you drive by there on
Mercedes
purpose.
Benz, really? Mercedes Benz Dome? Oh man, I drive an old Ford truck. You know.
Oh no, it's a personal attack.
Oh, the
It's
Steiners, they can have those German cars, man. That stuff.
oh no.
I'm old school, Daddy.
Oh, it sounds like you are with that phrase, and I love it so much. But it has been an honor and a privilege talking to you today on
Same
Tank
here.
Out.
Same here.
I've been Steve Fall. He's Johnny Swinger. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time, Daddy.
Got it, Daddy.
Bye.